Welcome. Today, we begin a gentle journey into the world of moss gardening. Imagine walking barefoot across a carpet of emerald softness, every step cushioned by nature's quiet green. Moss garden design is not about bright blooms or towering shrubs. It's about texture, shadow, and stillness. In the hush of shade landscaping, moss thrives, turning even the smallest courtyard into a sanctuary. Let's slow down together and see how softness can transform space into serenity. The beauty of moss lies in its humility. It doesn't shout for attention, it whispers. In moss garden design, the focus shifts from color to texture, from fleeting petals to enduring greenery. Japanese softscape traditions celebrate moss for its ability to ground the eye, soften stone, and invite stillness. In deep shaded landscaping, moss is more than a plant. It's a living, breathing surface that connects you to the earth. Imagine a shaded path, dappled with morning light. The stones are softened by moss, their hard edges blurred into something timeless. Shade landscaping like this turns a simple walkway into a sensory experience. In Japanese softscape design, moss is used to slow your pace. Each step feels deliberate, like a pause in conversation. This is where the beauty lives, not in rushing, but in letting the garden breathe. Moss garden design begins with choosing the right spot. Moss loves the cool embrace of shade, the gentle moisture of morning dew. Shade landscaping provides this perfect environment. In Japanese softscape philosophy, placement is everything. Moss often hugs the base of lanterns, creeps between stepping stones, or spreads at the foot of trees. Each patch is a soft brush stroke in a larger painting of calm. Close your eyes and picture rain falling on a mossy surface. The droplets bead, then vanish into the green, leaving the ground richer and darker. Moss garden design thrives on this quiet cycle of moisture and rest. Shade landscaping enhances it, sheltering the moss from harsh sun. In Japanese softscape traditions, this constant renewal is part of the garden's soul, ever-changing, yet always steady in spirit. The first step in creating a moss garden design is patience. Moss will not be hurried. It grows at its own pace, guided by shade, water, and time. Shade landscaping allows you to nurture moss, naturally letting it spread in soft, irregular patterns. In Japanese softscape, this slow process is celebrated. Every week brings subtle changes, a new curve of growth, a richer depth of green. There's a kind of magic in how moss clings to stone. It wraps around its host, softening the harsh, weathered edges. Moss garden design often pairs moss with old granite or slate, creating a dialogue between strength and tenderness. Shade landscaping ensures this relationship endures, while Japanese softscape principles frame the pairing like a piece of living art. In summer, when the sun scorches lawns, moss remains cool beneath your feet. Shade landscaping preserves this lush comfort, creating microclimates where moss can thrive. Moss garden design embraces these pockets of life. In Japanese softscape gardens, they become resting points, places to stand still, breathe, and feel the quiet resilience of something so small, yet so enduring. A moss-covered stone lantern in the corner of a shaded garden speaks without words. It tells a story of years passing, of rain and wind, of soft persistence. Moss garden design uses time as a tool, allowing nature to weave its texture slowly. Shade landscaping protects this evolution. Japanese softscape tradition honors it as a sign of maturity, not neglect. Moss doesn't need rich soil. It thrives on the simplest foundation. That's why moss garden design often works in places where nothing else grows, under dense trees, along north-facing walls, or in damp courtyards. Shade landscaping creates the perfect balance of moisture and shelter. In Japanese softscape philosophy, these overlooked spaces become treasures, their quiet beauty revealed through the softness of moss. run your fingers across moss, you feel a softness unlike anything else in the garden. It's not the slickness of a petal, nor the roughness of bark. Moss feels alive, breathing under your touch. Moss garden design invites this intimacy. Shade landscaping provides the perfect conditions for this tactile experience, while Japanese softscape principles encourage you to connect physically with the garden, not just view it from afar. Moss absorbs sound, muffling footsteps and softening the hum of the outside world. A courtyard with a thoughtful moss garden design becomes a quiet refuge. Its shade landscaping protecting both plant and peace. In Japanese softscape style, the silence is intentional. Moss acts as a natural cushion for sound, creating a meditative space where even the air feels calmer. Think of moss as a green ocean. Each tiny frond is like a wave, catching light and shadow differently as the day moves. Moss garden design plays with this texture, using shade landscaping to let the sun's movement create subtle shifts in tone. In Japanese softscape philosophy, this constant play between light and moss is part of the garden's poetry. A single stone, covered entirely in moss, can be more powerful than a bed of flowers. Moss garden design values this minimalism, placing focus on form and texture. Shade landscaping nurtures the moss, while framing it with surrounding greenery. Japanese softscape traditions know that in restraint lies beauty. Every inch of moss becomes significant when it is the centerpiece. Under the eaves of a wooden gate, moss creeps along the stone threshold, greeting every visitor. Shade landscaping shields it from sun, letting it flourish in its own quiet way. Moss garden design often places moss in these transitional spaces, thresholds, paths, and steps. Japanese softscape principles remind us that every journey into the garden should begin softly. In the heart of a shaded grove, moss covers the earth like a living quilt. Its greens shift from deep jade to pale lime, creating a natural gradient. Moss garden design thrives here. In the cool stillness of shade landscaping, Japanese softscape tradition teaches that such color transitions are best appreciated slowly by kneeling close and letting the details reveal themselves. Raindrops rest on moss like tiny jewels. Shade landscaping ensures they last longer before evaporating, letting you witness this fleeting sparkle. Moss garden design makes room for these small, transient beauties in Japanese softscape style. Such moments are treasured, reminders that beauty often appears in the quiet, overlooked corners of the garden. The edge of a pond can be softened with moss, blending water and land seamlessly. Shade landscaping along the banks prevents the moss from drying out. Moss garden design in Japanese softscape style often uses this technique to create harmony, where one element transitions into another so gently you hardly notice where one ends and the other begins. A fallen log, its bark covered in moss, becomes a sculpture in the garden. Shade landscaping protects this natural artwork. Moss garden design celebrates its slow transformation. In Japanese softscape philosophy, decay is not loss, but renewal. Moss takes what once was and gives it a second life, turning it into something even more beautiful. Even a narrow city balcony can hold a moss garden design. A shallow tray filled with shade-loving moss becomes a miniature landscape. Shade landscaping here is about creating the right microclimate, sheltering the moss from harsh light and wind. In Japanese softscape, thinking scale is irrelevant. Serenity can bloom in a single square foot of green. In the soft light of dawn, moss glows faintly as if lit from within. Shade landscaping preserves this delicate beauty by shielding it from the glare of midday. Moss garden design thrives in these gentle hours. Japanese softscape philosophy encourages visiting your garden at different times so you can experience how light transforms even the smallest patch of moss. A moss-covered slope becomes a velvety hillside. Shade landscaping holds the moisture that keeps it lush. Moss garden design prevents erosion naturally. Japanese softscape gardens use moss on slopes, not only for beauty, but also for function, stabilizing soil while creating a landscape that looks as though it has always been there. Moss between stepping stones invites a slower pace. Shade landscaping ensures those delicate tufts aren't scorched by sun. Moss garden design treats pathways not just as roots, but as experiences. In Japanese softscape tradition, each step is intentional, giving you time to notice the space around you and the softness beneath your feet. A mossy ground plain under a maple tree catches fallen leaves in autumn. The red and gold rest on green, creating a seasonal tapestry. Shade landscaping beneath the tree protects the moss year-round. Moss garden design in Japanese softscape settings often uses this interplay of plant and season, creating changing scenes without altering the design. In temple gardens, moss covers the earth like a prayer mat. The shade landscaping around ancient pines and stone lanterns keeps it lush for decades. Moss garden design draws from this heritage, creating spaces where time feels suspended. Japanese softscape tradition teaches that walking among moss is like walking through history itself. corner of a rock wall catches runoff from rain, creating a damp cradle for moss. Shade landscaping ensures this corner stays cool. Moss garden design sees potential in such overlooked spots. In Japanese softscape philosophy, these small, self-contained worlds hold the same value as the grandest garden vistas. Moss softens the base of bamboo fences, blurring the line between built and natural. Shade landscaping maintains this harmony, keeping the moss moist and vibrant. Moss garden design uses such edges to integrate human craft with nature. Japanese softscape style cherishes these transitions, where the hand of the gardener disappears into the hand of the earth. On misty mornings, the entire garden feels wrapped in a green hush. Shade landscaping amplifies the effect as the moss glistens under the soft light. Moss garden design thrives in such conditions. Japanese softscape traditions celebrate them, moments when the boundary between the garden and the atmosphere blurs into a single breath. A mossy mound can be shaped into gentle rises and valleys, like miniature hills. Shade landscaping helps maintain their shape. Moss garden design brings the surface alive. Japanese softscape gardens often create these undulating forms to evoke distant mountains, turning a small space into a vast imagined landscape. A final look at your moss garden reveals what makes it so special: its patience, its subtlety, its ability to transform even the smallest space into a sanctuary. Shade landscaping has sheltered it. Japanese softscape principles have guided it, and now it lives as a part of your home. Thank you for joining this journey into softness and serenity. If you found peace here, please subscribe and walk with us again. act of planting moss is almost meditative. You press it gently into the soil or stone, feeling its cool, damp underside. Moss garden design is about connection. Your hands shaping the space as shade landscaping cradles the plant. In Japanese softscape tradition, this slow, intentional placement turns gardening into an act of mindfulness where each touch carries meaning. Sometimes, moss appears on its own, unplanned, yet perfect. Shade landscaping provides the conditions, and nature handles the rest. Moss garden design welcomes these surprises, weaving them into the overall plan. Japanese softscape philosophy sees such arrivals not as intrusions, but as gifts, a reminder that the garden has a will of its own. In the stillness after a rainstorm, moss seems to pulse with life. Its green deepens, its texture rises. Shade landscaping extends this freshness, shielding the moss from drying winds. Moss garden design uses these post-rain moments as the most vivid displays. Japanese softscape designers often encourage visiting the garden at these times, when everything feels newly born. A shaded stone bench, fringed with moss at its base, becomes more than a seat. It becomes part of the landscape. Shade landscaping ensures the moss thrives there, wrapping stone in softness. Moss garden design embraces such integration, while Japanese softscape principles dissolve the boundary between utility and beauty. The oldest parts of a moss garden often hold the deepest beauty. Shade landscaping allows moss to age gracefully, deepening in tone, thickening in texture. Moss garden design treasures these long-established patches. In Japanese softscape style, the age is a virtue, proof of resilience, and the gentle passing of time. Along a shaded stream, moss grips the stones, holding fast against the current's spray. Moss garden design uses these damp, low-light places as natural canvases. Shade landscaping enhances their lushness. Japanese softscape traditions view them as symbols of endurance, soft yet steadfast. The fragrance of moss is subtle, but grounding. It smells of rain, earth, and shade. Shade landscaping keeps the scent alive by protecting the moss's moisture. Moss garden design values fragrance as much as form. In Japanese softscape gardens, scent is an invisible layer of the experience, felt more than noticed. A low bamboo spout trickles water onto moss, creating a tiny world of sound and softness. Shade landscaping shields this spot from glare, ensuring the moss stays vibrant. Moss garden design often places water features beside moss for contrast and harmony. Japanese softscape thinking calls this shizen, design that feels as if it simply occurred. In winter, moss becomes a green ember against the cold gray. Shade landscaping provides windbreaks, helping it endure. Moss garden design appreciates this constancy. Japanese softscape tradition holds moss as a reminder that life persists even in the quietest seasons. Moss on tree roots creates a seamless connection between trunk and earth. Shade landscaping protects these delicate bridges. Moss garden design celebrates their organic flow. Japanese softscape principles find beauty in these natural unions, where one form blends effortlessly into another. On a shaded rooftop garden, moss transforms hard surfaces into a living green. Shade landscaping can be created with screens or overhangs, making such unlikely spaces possible. Moss garden design pushes the boundaries of where softness can exist. Japanese softscape design shows that even above the city, nature can take root. A moss garden beneath a pergola takes on dappled patterns as sunlight filters through. Shade landscaping from the pergola slats offers shifting light that moss loves. Moss garden design uses these patterns to create changing moods. In Japanese softscape gardens, the interplay of light and shadow is as important as the plants themselves. Moss creeping up the sides of a stone water basin adds a timeless feel. Shade landscaping keeps the basin's rim cool and damp. Moss garden design sees this as more than decoration. It's an extension of the water's calm. Japanese softscape philosophy holds such details as vital to the whole composition. In a narrow alley between buildings, moss can turn concrete into a softscape. Shade landscaping is naturally provided by the walls, while moss garden design transforms an unremarkable space into a green retreat. Japanese softscape tradition teaches that beauty can bloom anywhere if given the right care. Even the smallest crevice in a stone path can hold moss. Shade landscaping ensures these delicate colonies survive. Moss garden design values them as quiet punctuation marks in the landscape. Japanese softscape philosophy sees them as part of the garden's grammar, small but necessary to the whole sentence. A mossy courtyard after snowfall is a study in contrast. The green beneath, the white above. Shade landscaping preserves the moss even in winter's grip. Moss garden design embraces the changing seasons, and Japanese softscape gardens use such moments to show how resilience and beauty coexist. In the evening, when lantern light spills across the garden, moss reflects it softly. Shade landscaping holds the coolness of day, letting moss glow subtly at night. Moss garden design often considers the garden after dark. In Japanese softscape tradition, nighttime is another chapter in the garden's story. Moss on the slope of a tea garden path prepares guests for the calm of the ceremony ahead. Shade landscaping along the route keeps it lush. Moss garden design understands the power of transition spaces, while Japanese softscape culture uses them to set the emotional tone for what's to come. The rhythm of moss growth is slow but sure. Shade landscaping gives it stability, while moss garden design works with that rhythm, not against it. In Japanese softscape philosophy, speed is never the goal, endurance and harmony are. Moss on an old stone lantern tells you that it has stood there for decades. Shade landscaping has allowed it to remain untouched by harsh elements. Moss garden design values this kind of living history. Japanese softscape tradition holds such artifacts as the garden's memory keepers. light fog rolls through a moss garden, it feels as if the air itself has softened. Shade landscaping catches and holds the moisture, letting moss drink deeply. Moss garden design thrives in such gentle weather. In Japanese softscape thinking, fog is not an interruption, but an enhancement. A simple circle of moss around a tree trunk becomes a focal point. Shade landscaping keeps the roots and moss-like protected. Moss garden design uses such minimal gestures for maximum effect. Japanese softscape gardens teach that sometimes the smallest design choices leave the longest impression. Moss on the surface of a rock wall adds depth to its texture. Shade landscaping prevents sun from bleaching it away. Moss garden design uses these vertical planes as opportunities. Japanese softscape tradition sees them as ways to weave the earth upward into the garden. The hush of a moss garden in the early morning is unmatched. Shade landscaping ensures that hush endures, while moss garden design shapes it into a space where sound, sight, and scent all flow to the same rhythm. Japanese softscape principles teach us that in such moments, we are not just in the garden, we are part of it. Moss between the cracks of a stone patio changes the feel underfoot. Shade landscaping encourages these green threads to spread. Moss garden design uses them to soften geometry. Japanese softscape philosophy sees this as the garden reclaiming form from rigid lines. An old clay pot tipped on its side lets moss spill out like water. Shade landscaping keeps this vignette alive. Moss garden design loves such playful touches, and Japanese softscape style weaves them in, without breaking the garden's calm. In the filtered shade of tall pines, moss carpets the forest floor. Moss garden design recreates this in smaller spaces, using shade landscaping to mimic the forest's cool shelter. Japanese softscape gardens draw on this imagery to evoke the feeling of walking in a timeless woodland. A moss-covered garden bridge becomes a passage not just over water, but into another state of mind. Shade landscaping guards this delicate surface, while moss garden design turns the crossing into an experience. Japanese softscape tradition calls this hashi a bridge not just for the body, but for the spirit. The joy of moss gardening is in the details. Shade landscaping creates the right stage, moss garden design arranges the cast, and Japanese softscape philosophy directs the scene. Together, they produce a living artwork that changes day by day, yet always feels whole. Every moss garden tells a story of patience, of quiet, of beauty that grows without rush. Shade landscaping has been its guardian, moss garden design its artist, and Japanese softscape its guiding philosophy. Thank you for joining me on this walk through softness and serenity. If this journey has inspired you, please subscribe and return for more moments of calm in the garden.